Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name's REGANELITE, and welcome, guys, to the Snowflakes Mountain Top, I suppose I'm calling it now. And welcome to our first, or we can still call it roundtable discussion, I suppose. But it's the first one of 2025 here, and I've got three fantastic guests here for me. Thank you guys so much for for waiting on the technical difficulties. These things do happen, of course, but thank you guys for your patience. I really do appreciate it. As I said, we have three wonderful guests here. First guest here is on to my right of your screen is One Angry Pagan. Of course, do check out the work that he does, and he's been with me for quite a few of these. How are you doing, Pagan? You all right?
All good, all good. I've been amusing myself with Donald Trump's. I don't know what you can call it.
Well, I'm sure we'll get into him in a bit. Below me on your screen, guys, is a very, very popular YouTuber who's fast rising. That is indeed, with his 5 reasons why someone is a twat, which I absolutely enjoy, and I do recommend checking out his content. It really is wonderful stuff. Please welcome Power to the People's Graham Price. Graham, how are you doing?
I'm not too bad at all, mate. Thank you for having me on.
No, thank you. Appreciate your time. And the final guest I have for me is many of you might be familiar with. Myself and him have had a YouTube channel called the Snowflake Show, where we used to do shows every Wednesday for you guys. And of course, it's been obviously we were going to do a show at Christmas. It just unfortunately could not happen. But I wanted to bring him on to get his thoughts about what's been happening in the world as well. Please welcome Lee Corne. Lee, how are you doing?
I'm okay, thanks.
Lee
but
Corne.
I might lose my voice at some point because whenever I've been talking to people today, my voice just goes disintegrates. So I'm just pre-warning you.
All right, Lee Corne. Lee Corne is what I used to. Yeah, Lee Corne. I'm Lee Corne. Yes, you are. Okay, guys. So the first topic I want to we'll discuss with you guys is obviously one of the biggest stories that's taken place around the that's happened in the last pretty much the last 24 hours or so, and that is the Gaza ceasefire deal. Now, I just want to give you guys a bit of an update before I bring you guys in on some of the story. So first and foremost, the deal has not been officially signed off by the Israeli government's cabinet. Netanyahu has stated, and I have checked this before we came on as well, that no deal on the Gaza ceasefire deal until Hamas has accepted all terms. The Israeli Prime Minister has demanded before the expected cabinet meeting threatens to derail peace negotiations. So, and it's not going to be until at least Sunday. So, as of right now, Israel are still continuing everything as normal, unfortunately, in the Middle East, despite the fact that there has been an agreement between Hamas and all the nations involved. There is still strikes taking place. There are still unfortunate lives being lost. But I'll just bring up, for those who don't know, a bit more about the deal. So in the first stage, which lasts 6 weeks and see a full and comprehensive ceasefire, US President Joe Biden has confirmed a deal had been reached on Wednesday. Hostages in Gaza and Palestinian prisoners in Israel will be freed, and Gazans who have been displaced will be allowed to return home. A number of hostages held by Hamas, including women, the elderly, and the sick, would be released in exchange for hundreds of Palestinian prisoners, Biden has said. He did not specify how many hostages would be released during the first stage, but Qatar's Al Tayin told a news conference on Wednesday that it would be 33. An Israeli government spokesperson previously said most, but not all of the 33, which included children, were thought to be still alive. So that's also during this stage, Israeli troops would pull out of all populated areas. That's the key word, populated. That's not all areas, populated areas of Gaza. And Biden said also that the Palestinians could return to their neighborhoods in all areas of Gaza. Almost all of Gaza's 2.3 million people had to leave their homes, yet we would know about that. And they would also said there'd be more surging humanitarian aid delivering to Gaza, and Biden says the ceasefire would persist as long as negotiations continue, and that's just the first stage. Second stage would be a permanent end to the war, according to Biden. The remaining living hostages, including men, would be released in return for more Palestinian prisoners. Of the 1,000 Palestinian prisoners, Israel is thought to have agreed to release overall about 190 that are serving of 15 years or more. An Israeli official previously told the BBC that those of convicted of murder will not be released into the occupied West Bank. There would also be a full withdrawal of Gaza troops from Gaza. And if we go that far, In the third stage would be the third and final stage would involve the reconstruction of Gaza, something which could take years, and they return any of the remaining hostages' bodies. So that's kind of the crux. I may miss one or two details, so feel free to add them in the comments if I've missed any of the details in the comments, guys. But when I'm going to start with you first, what's your first reactions basically since this has all started, pretty much? This ceasefire deal.
Well, I mean, we've got Trump trying to take credit for it. I can't remember his envoy's name, but there's a lot of credit going to Trump and his team for this. But like, the framework is pretty much the one that, the one that Biden's been pushing for. Nearly 8-9 months now.
Since May last year was when the original deal was in May last year, but it's a bit different to that deal, is my understanding.
Yeah, but like the framework, the 3-phase framework was the Biden
was in the original deal.
Yeah, so like I mean, I also heard that the UAE is trying to get in on like post-war Gaza control.
So it would be peacekeepers, is what they have said, but it'd be peacekeepers from them, is my understanding.
And also,
of that.
Well, I've been hearing that the UAE are willing to put investment into Gaza. Now, on one hand, you could take that at face value and say, yeah, that's okay, that's brilliant. On the other hand, you've seen the other people that the UAE support, like in Sudan, where they're supporting, I think, the RSF.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit nervy on that. You've also got the fact that this is going to be difficult as it is to push through, because for the most part, it's been Israel that's consistently, almost every time, pushed back on any ceasefire deal. Like I'm not saying that the Hamas haven't done it too. I mean, they're Islamic fascists. They're hardly the good guys here. But the Israel and all of the Arab states are in one mind on Hamas cannot be in control of Gaza at the end of this. And when you're hearing this stuff coming out from the Jordanian king, I think, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, they don't want this. I mean, I know Turkey's not Arabian, but the states around West Asia and the Levant, they don't want Hamas in charge of Gaza, because
I think everyone doesn't. I think the idea is that they would disassemble. I haven't seen that in the deal from what I've seen. But obviously, this was mediated, obviously, between Qatar, Egypt, the US, as well as Israel.
This is stuff I've been hearing from war fronts on the YouTube channel and various other places. Like, this is hearing about, what different American commentators have said, what different Israeli commentators have said, what different Arab and other Muslim commentators have said.
Yeah.
And whilst that's not part of the deal right now, again, that's some of that's probably right now being renegotiated because Israel is kicking up a fucking fuss.
Yes, I should actually point out, that obviously the government will collapse if it's. I think I heard the finance minister Yovan Gallant, who's basically saying that if they don't resume it after the second phase, that they would if they don't collapse the deal in the second phase, they would basically the government would collapse or something along those lines. So it's very, very edgy right now. Graham, what's your thoughts? I mean, obviously, I know you don't normally cover outside news in particular, but obviously, given of what you've read and what you've heard, what do you make of the situation now?
It seems very fragile. It's a good start, but it's only a start, isn't it? And Netanyahu hasn't really got very much impetus to want it to end, has he?
No.
I've watched a couple of little reports, and I'm quite pleased about it. It seems like a good way forward, but we've been here before, haven't we? I think is it just gonna? They'll find a peace for a while, and then the same thing. They'll be in the same situation years down the line. They've got to find a better solution.
I think
it's not something to follow really closely, though.
Yeah. Go on, Lee.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think a couple of things like you say. I was reading that they're going to cut the two of the parties are in coalition with Netanyahu's party, are basically threatening to pull out at the end of the first phase if Hamas is still in control, and also basically within a year to pull out of the parties, basically collapse the government, pull out of the coalition.
Exactly.
I think on. Yeah, I don't know I don't know who would replace Hamas. So in terms of who runs the Gaza Strip, because the West Bank is run by I always forget the name.
Palestinian Authority.
Which is but what's the group there's Hamas, and I can't remember what that group was called, but they're not in a good state at the moment. You know, they've been
a lot of
corruption and things like.
It would be new leaders. This is why the UAE. This is why I mentioned the UAE, because they're getting heavily involved in. It seems like anyway they're getting heavily involved in the political structure restructuring of Gaza as well, which is on one hand, on the face of it, sounds great. But on the other hand, look at the other people they've supported. So it's like, yeah.
Well, I mean,
there's so many people who've got different stakes in it.
Yeah. I think Hamas is like basically relies on outside funding, doesn't it? So it's like Iran is probably its main funder. Iran isn't in a great state at the moment, and especially in Lebanon as well. So because obviously they fund God, I always forget the names of these different Hezbollah.
Hezbollah,
yeah.
So
Lebanon.
Iran, the axis of resistance. So it's Hezbollah, it's the Houthi rebels in Yemen.
Yeah,
it was there was a group in Syria, but obviously I don't know if they backed. They did back Assad, didn't they? Iran, I believe they did. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But obviously that's collapsed. That's collapsed now, obviously. So,
I mean,
yeah.
Go on. I was just going to say because the 19th coincides with the day. It's the day before Trump takes power in America. His people are saying that he's going to be the most pro-Israel president ever. So, you kind of wonder whether, because, like you say, he needs to. Netanyahu hasn't got any it doesn't benefit from the war ending, really. Keeping the country in a constant state of emergency and threat, suits him because it keeps him in power.
He benefits though because he stays out of jail, doesn't he?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I think if Trump comes in and goes anti-Iran, like because he's already kind of he doesn't like Iran, so if he suddenly starts kicking off with Iran, that's some of this stuff I hear stuff from like a guy who's Iranian who I know he's not Muslim, but he's basically desperate. He loves Trump because he thinks Trump is going to be the savior. He'll kick out the Iranian government, but I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, if Hamas hasn't got anybody to fund them, then I don't really see how they can come back, because that's always been the thing, is that they sort of go away for a couple of years while they rearm themselves, come back and start launching missiles again. So yeah, it depends. Like I say, if UAE, I mean, Saudi Arabia hasn't really said much about this, has it? He's kept it very quiet about it as well. So
yeah.
We had a bit of a win this week or last week with the Lebanese election. Actually getting a president or prime minister finally after how many years? 3 years, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
So, and it wasn't Hezbollah was someone Hezbollah wanted either. I mean, the Hezbollah, the political wing of Hezbollah, did lend their support to this guy in the end, but like this guy is Saudi's guy. The first place this guy visited was Saudi Arabia, so they were quite happy with what happened in Lebanon in the last week.
I just wanted to say thank you, Al-Sakir, for this £5 super chat. He said, if the deal goes through, Israel PM will be going to The Hague, so he will not want this to go through, in my opinion. I just also want to say thank you, Al-Sakir, for the 5 gifted memberships as well. Really appreciate your support, my friend. I don't think I've said this, and I don't think he's going to The Hague at all. And I think it comes back to when this all started moving was after Netanyahu was at Mar-a-Lago and they had a meeting with Trump. And that's when the movement of this started happening. And my general belief is that Donald Trump has offered Netanyahu something. I don't know what it is, but I think Donald Trump has offered him something to push this through, because the premise is that, as Pagan, as what you're rightly saying, it's been that Hamas wants the deal. Hamas wants the deal. They want this to end, because we've already had more than 45,000, at least 45,000. It's actually higher. We know it's higher because that they've recorded, but we know it's actually higher than that, the numbers. There's just been way too much suffering. There's been way too much suffering, and we need way too much suffering. And Trump has offered Netanyahu something. And as we know, he's wanted by the International Criminal Courts, by the ICC, Netanyahu. And my feeling is that I think whatever happens, Netanyahu is going to be done for in Israel. And I can see him being given safety or sanctuary in America by Trump. In some
same
way,
Assad went to Russia.
Exactly. This is exactly what I can see. And we also have to remember that there's actually a lot of history within Trump's family, with Netanyahu's family, even the Trump Jr. at a young age as well. There's a lot of history for them. Like, so they are close. So it's not just a case of two political leaders. No, there is actually long-term connection there. So they will not want to. Trump's not going to sit by and allow Netanyahu to be apprehended, despite the fact of everything that he and his government has caused. But I don't know. Like, the thing is that people are screaming and calling for some kind of justice, and I'm like, I don't know where the justice is going to come from, because everyone's been ignoring. Well, they've been ignoring the International Criminal Courts. They've been ignoring what's been saying. We've seen online the countless amounts of video footage that's been put up. It's been absolutely horrific. I literally covered yesterday, like, there was a video from the Association Press that showed it was a small group, but it's a small group of Israeli soldiers who said that they were ordered to do things that they didn't want to do. Then they refused to go to war because of what the things that they have been ordered and told to do inside Gaza. And it really does show just how low they have gone. But the problem is there's been no accountability.
The only way to deal with Israel, and I hate to say this because I don't like war, but neither am I a pacifist, so fuck it. Look, the only way, if you really want to put make sure that these guys come down, you got to go in there and actually remove them from power. You actually have to do a Serbia, you have to do, an Afghanistan on Israel. And I hate to say that, but like, if you really wanted to remove the fascist power that's in charge of Israel right now, in my own words, I will say, but you're not, like we've seen with Trump, that unless you actually, if America dealt with it in the way that their law actually says that they should, he wouldn't have been in a position to run for president again.
Exactly. Yeah.
But the Americans ignored their own fucking law.
Yeah. I just I mean, obviously, given like, are we actually going to? Are they actually going to make it till Sunday? Like, this is the thing as well. Like, because the like, are they going to hold? Do we actually think that they will on Sunday? Will the gunfires stop? Will there actually be?
This is what I mean when I say it's
Pride.
fragile. There's so many people who have got a stake in it carrying on. I'll be happy on Sunday if it actually something happens, but it's progress. But I'm not that confident.
What do you honestly think, Lee? Do you think this is good? Do you think this is going to hold at all or not?
Well, look like it because there are already 70 odd people dead today from strikes in Gaza. Don't know. It might do. I think Hamas are kind of desperate at the moment because the whole place is just there's nothing left of it really, is there? Not much left of it.
Yeah.
Surely we can't hold out much longer.
You wouldn't.
Well, there's I mean, despite the fact that over 90% of the buildings are gone, I mean, they still have their tunnels. They're still around. I'll also say as well, because Jal pointed this out to me yesterday in the live stream, that apparently there was some Israel had settled in parts of northern Gaza. I've not seen any footage of that. I do want to stress that, but
Al Jazeera,
as Al Jazeera reported that, I've not seen a report from them. But correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm not allowed in Gaza, but like I know they're not allowed in Gaza, but like I've been seeing reports come out from Al Jazeera and other places. You know, it's but they did the same thing to the West Bank, and Smotrich, I can't remember if he's the finance minister or not, but he's said so many times, and Itmar Ben-Gvir, about Israelis settling in Gaza. They've not been quiet about it even in the last few weeks, I think. So.
Yeah, it does seem.
Didn't Trump say something about the West Bank being prime beach estate or something? A short while ago during the campaign.
Said, the Gaza. Didn't you say along the Gaza line? Well, there can't be prime beach estate against the West Bank. There's no sea there. Yeah, it's incredibly scary. The fact.
Maybe he said holiday estate. I don't know, but I'm sure he seems to. He's very much on Israel side, Trump, isn't he? So.
Yeah, it definitely feels like that. But yeah, as you said, Lee, there was another strike today.
Like 20 strikes, essentially, 20 missiles.
Oh my God.
Yeah, on the day it was agreed as well. Literally a couple of hours before the deal was announced, that there was I think there was a couple of strikes where several lives were lost, including children, I'm afraid. Just for reference as well, about 45,000+ lives have been lost, whether they're Hamas or Palestinians have lost their lives, including women and children. Obviously, we don't know the official figure because obviously there's so many more under the rubble. I know it's a difficult one to talk about given the situation, but I think, look, we just hope that the deal holds and that it leads to something, and that's the best we can hope for. Just something, because they need that respite. I think that's something they definitely need. Well, switch gears away from there, because we've been talking about Donald Trump anyway, so we might as well carry on talking about him. Obviously. Well, I haven't seen it yet. I don't know if anyone saw Joe Biden's final presidential speech in the office. You can enlighten us on that. But obviously now it's not too long away now before Donald Trump is sworn in. Obviously, convicted felon as well, to add insult to injury. It's very gloomy, and this guy, rather than talking about reducing the price of eggs that he kept saying about in the election campaign, he's talking about buying Greenland, the Panama Canal, Canada, which is, I mean, it is crazy stuff, but there are also strategic and resources there in Greenland in particular, which is why Graham, I want to start with you before we come to Pagan. How are you feeling when we are getting so close to what is going to be a long, very long 4-year election, 4-year election, maybe even longer, we don't know, of President Trump in America, and what that could mean for the rest of the world, including here?
Yeah. It's hard to know how to feel about it. I think we'll have to see how he actually goes on and whether he keeps any of these threats and things that he keeps coming out with. Because, I mean, if you watch Americans, they all say, oh, he doesn't mean a lot of what he says. He didn't really mean it. But I think a lot of the time he does mean it. And he's serious about these things like, Panama Canal and Greenland. I think he is. I think over time we'll have to find out if the American institution is held up strongly enough to prevent somebody who is clearly a quite stupid megalomaniac doing ridiculous things. Well, some Americans seem to think it's going to, and some don't. I tend to fall on the side of I don't think it is. I think he's spent the last 4 years making sure that if and when he gets back into power, there's nothing to hold him back again. So I hate to be pessimistic, I try not to be generally, but I haven't got a very good feeling about it. It is a big concern.
Yeah, a lot of Americans have moved out of Republican states to Democratic states. Even some Americans have even fled the country, which is very demoralizing when you think about it. Lee, what are your thoughts on the situation?
Yeah, no, I agree with Graham. I think he's basically he learned from the first term. First term, he didn't expect to win in the first place. He didn't really intend to be president from the start, but he ended up in that situation, and now he's like, well, he had to become president to avoid all these different things. We now find out he would have been. God, I'm losing words today. I'm very tired today. He would have been he was not indicted. He would have been charged. Well, not charged. He was. He would have been convicted, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
He said he would have been convicted on the charges that he was facing, had it gone to trial. So basically, he got away with it just by being elected, and he just managed to push that whole thing for 4 years. Oh, it took him like 2 years to get going on it, didn't it? And then he just dragged their feet on it, and it just seems to be like they could have expedited it, but they haven't. But yeah, I think like say he didn't really know what he was getting into the first time. He was following advice of who he should hire for the different ministerial roles and the different departments roles, and so he was following experts, political people who, well, we know there was a lot of people within the White House who were stopping him from doing stupid stuff. Yeah. This time he's made sure that all the people that he's got in are loyal to him and agree with him on a lot of things. That is dangerous. The one thing that I'm seeing is that the Republicans in the House aren't exactly all fully for him, or don't seem to support everything he wants. So he might have a bit of a struggle getting some things through. He hasn't got a big majority, has he? Yeah, well, it is, yeah. But I think the first thing we're going to see, or one of the first things, is in the first year, he's going to be pushing to remove that change the constitution, so remove that amendment. I can't get the 31st Amendment, something like that allows him, that limits 2 terms. I think he'll be pushing straight away for that. And I think he's probably learned from Putin as well on what to do, because Putin's done exactly these things bit by bit, and maybe he might go a bit quicker because he's limited on time. He hasn't got 2 terms to do it all in, but he'll try and remove stuff. They're already talking about completely shutting down the Department of Education. I can see him limiting, changing things like who the military is beholden to, in terms of it's supposed to be to defend the Constitution of the United States. I can see him changing that to defending the president, and at which point then he can do pretty much whatever the hell he wants. I mean, he's already allowed him. He's already basically got the Supreme Court to say that he can, as president, he can do whatever he wants without.
He's basically immune from prosecution.
He's got immunity. Yeah, exactly. It does worry me. I think it's either going to be, like some people are saying, that he won't be as bad as he is, but I'm expecting the worst.
I think he'll be worse than he was last time. Now, how bad that will turn out to be is what time will tell. But I do think he'll be worse than he was last time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I think
he'd be like Trump last time without the rain, with the reins taken off.
Yeah.
The little kiddie reins holding him back. No, you can't do that, Donald.
Well,
don't put your finger in that fire.
I think the one saving grace, which you mentioned, obviously, is so in order for him to change the constitution, for him to have a longer term, the only way for that to happen, he would have to convince Democrats in the House.
He's got to get past the Senate.
Exactly.
And
they also got to get approved with Congress. But there's special amendments. So you actually have to have 60% of approval. It's not a case of just. It's not just a case of having like 51 to 49 when it comes to the House. No, you have to have a bigger threshold. That means they've got to convince Democrats, which I can't see happening to change their constitution.
What I can say,
not just that, but he's got to get around the Republicans who are already giving him shit. Like
yeah, we're all fighting with each other already. He's not even in office yet.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll let Lee finish. Sorry.
No, go on. I'll let you.
Now go on, have your piece, Pagan.
Yeah.
Okay, a few bits then. So we'll start with: do I think Trump's going to be worse than he was last time? Yeah, but I also don't think that he's going to be as bad as we thought he'd be. Largely because one, incompetence.
Yeah.
He's still this time, even though he had the opportunity to not yes, he was going to get yes men, but he could have got yes men that were actually intelligent, and he's made the same fucking mistake as last time. Like for the Department of Defense, he's hired a former Fox News host, for fuck's sake. Like he's. I was saying this to Graham, I think, yesterday. The difference, and on the Bin podcast, which is an American podcast, the main difference between the 1930s and 1940s and America now is incompetence. The Nazis were actually competent at their jobs. Trump's team last time really, he wasn't a competent leader. And he was told, so this time he's picked out guys himself, or his sons have.
Yeah.
But in the process, they've picked out fucking morons. And I mean, Tulsi, where the hell so on that front, I do think there is a level to where we must be a bit realistic with what he thinks he can achieve and what he can actually achieve. The main point I wanted to talk about though was Greenland. Now, me and my mum and a few others have picked up on something. If Trump is so interested in Greenland because of its minerals and resources, right, then he must believe in climate change.
No.
Because he knows. No, seriously.
Okay.
He's had explained to him by, I think, Donald Musk has been talking to Elon Musk. Dominic Cummings has been talking to Elon Musk. Yeah. And so instead of not believing in it, he's now seeing, I can make money out of this. He's still going to go around saying he doesn't believe in climate change, right? But that's because he wants the Earth to warm up faster, so he's still alive to see the money come rolling in from all these minerals that come out of the frigid North and Antarctica. Because I think I heard during the run up to the election, I heard whispers about him wanting to make some move on Antarctica as well. So,
oh my god,
I will just point out that. Sorry, Pagan, I will account. I just want to point out that because Dave McGuinness has pointed this out on his channel, that there is obviously to do with the control of the seas around Greenland, as well as it's a factor into it as well. I don't know how much of that is, but obviously I do think there is.
it's the Arctic's going to become one of the main trading routes.
Yeah,
It's a shorter distance than going completely across the Atlantic or the Pacific. So yeah, there's the trade routes dominance of the Arctic Circle, and the mineral, and I mean there's suspected to be gas deposits, and I know we don't
oil,
want
gas, lithium. There's a lot of.
I know we don't want the oil and gas to be dug up, but we know they're going to be like countries are still going to be after it whilst we're transitioning to green technologies anyway. I mean, Elon Musk is not against green technologies, because otherwise his Tesla shit wouldn't have brought him profit.
Yeah, I think like Trump. I think with regard to the climate change and things, I think Trump says what he thinks the people who don't believe in climate. He says he doesn't believe in climate change because he wants people who don't believe in climate change to vote for him. I think the truth is somewhere in between. I think he must know that there's some, he must believe on some level that there's a problem. But he's just saying what people want to hear.
He's taking he sees the profit in it. He's all about his money, isn't he?
Yeah.
Well, the biggest barrier, of course, is obviously like the problem is that, well, technically Greenland are with Denmark, which are part of NATO, part of the EU. So like, how are you going to get around that? You technically can't get around that. Like he's threatening to slap loads of tariffs on Denmark, but what like that's not gonna make him. That's not gonna change anything. Like the people of Greenland, they're happy where they are. They're happy with the relationship they have with Denmark. It's not perfect, but they're content with what they have. So, and like I don't know, there was a story. I think I've pointed this out in chat before, where basically they boosted the Denmark announced increases in defense for Greenland, and I was like, "You what? Like, what exactly are you going to do?" and even that, like, they have a military base there. The US have a military base already on Greenland anyway. But
but see, the big picture view of this, and this isn't Trump's thinking. This is the people around some of
this
the
is
people
capitalist
around
dogs, private entities, and whatnot looking at this.
Instead of the big picture view of this isn't actually buying out Greenland or the US outright taking or annexing Greenland. What it's more about is pushing the conversation onto the more American presence on Greenland. And Greenland wants to become independent at some point as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the president said, or prime minister said earlier this year, that, or early this Christian year, that they don't want to just become free of Denmark to then be ruled by the US.
Yeah,
I would. Yeah, it's not like they see Denmark as like their overlords. I would say it's like a. I wouldn't say it's not like the same relationship as England and Scotland. Let's put it that way. Because of that's not the same relationship. It's a different relationship.
No, but there is still a fractious relation. From what I've been doing a bit.
Yeah, it's not perfect in any way, shape, or form.
And there is some historical grievances from the Inuit people that live in Greenland towards the Danish and the Norwegians, to be fair.
Yeah,
because it was originally Norwegian, and then then Denmark and Norway became a combined kingdom, and then like when they split, Denmark was the one that kept fucking Greenland and not Norway. So
yeah.
Lee,
I was just gonna say. Sorry, I was just gonna jump in then. Go. What
go
gonna
on.
say?
No. I was gonna bring you in anyway. Go on.
All right. Okay. I just got to remember what I was gonna say. You mentioned about NATO and the EU. Because obviously there's that agreement in the EU, which basically is similar to NATO, where all the countries will defend each other. Now, I wonder whether Donald Trump is using this as a way to get out of NATO. Because if he did anything against Greenland, as being part of NATO, that would go. It mean basically he'd have to defend Greenland against himself. So by basically, he's aware of he could maybe push against it and say, well, we're going to take Greenland, and NATO goes, no, we're not. You can't do that, and he goes, oh, I'll have to leave then, because he doesn't like NATO for starters. He doesn't think America should spend so much money on defense to defend all these other countries. So it's not in his interest to stay as part of NATO. I would like to see the European countries, the EU, and the other members of NATO all just do a military exercise on Greenland. Just as, just everybody send a load of troops over there and just like a very long military exercise, just to kind of basically show him he can't just walk over everybody. But just going back to something we were saying before about the 22nd Amendment is that allows the two terms. One of the things that we need to look for in this, I think, is if he knows he can't get it through and he can't get all the things he wants doing through the House, the Senate, and I don't know
the House of
Senate,
Representatives.
the House,
House of Representatives, the House. Yeah,
you got it.
He can't get if he can't get it through the Capitol, then he will probably go for something like any kind of emergency situation, like a terrorist
executive orders is what he has the power.
Well, or he could just bring in emergency.
And then he's got 6 weeks to convince Congress that his action was right.
Well, if he and I don't know how this would work, but if he tries to bring in a state of emergency, he could then, that would pretty much give him carte blanche to do things without having to go through the House.
Well, he's still. It's like a 6-week period, because if he does military action, he's then got 6 weeks.
I'm not necessarily saying about military action. I'm talking about if there's like, for example, the wildfires in LA. If there's something new that came along, and he went, I'm declaring a state of emergency so we can deal with this. Particularly like a terrorist incident. You could then use that as a way to basically shut down the Capitol, basically just take control, declare a state of emergency, declare martial law, whatever he wanted to do. And I don't know legally where he would stand on that, but if he basically shut everything down and stopped anybody actually having the right to contest it, I think if that is a worry.
He would have done that. Do you remember the Lafayette Square?
Yeah, but if you remember, the reason why he didn't do it was because he had people there telling him he couldn't do it.
Well, not that he couldn't do it. They turned around and said that, like, he told them, "I want you to shoot protesters in the legs," and they were like, "No."
This is what I'm saying about how he looks to change things, like who the military is beholden to, things like that. It's quite an extreme. It's an extreme way of doing it, but given that he hasn't got the Senate and the House in his pocket, to the extent that he thought he would have, then he can't. He's going to really struggle to get these things done without some other. He can do executive orders, but he would find it easier if he's just got full control.
He will have the majority of the Senate are on his side, because a lot of them are Republicans that he's put in himself. But yes, some of them have not always been completely loyal to him, and I think that's
what has he got? What 60%? Do you say, or 66%? Has he got?
Yeah, he's got. The Republicans have got a very strong. Yeah, they've got far. I'm sure QA Library will bring it up in the comments the figure, but they have a very strong threshold, the Republicans, but not. But I wouldn't say the Republicans in the Senate are 100% diehard loyalty to Donald Trump. Quite a few of them are, because obviously they were put in by him, which led to the overturning of Roe v. Wade, because that's been something that's been doing over decades and decades that Republicans have been wanting to do. But like, even so, like the fact that while they do have control of the House of Representatives, it's only a slight control. And that is where the Democrats need to play their hands as much as they possibly can. But yes, we did say that earlier, Chatty Rat, saying, yeah, they pledge allegiance to the Constitution, not to the president. Yeah, but
yes, at the moment.
At the moment, but
So,
it's
yeah,
possible.
but if they do swear to the Constitution, then it will be on Trump to get it past Congress, the Senate, and the House to change that particular rule. It will be on Trump to get it past the House, and I don't think and the House and the Senate, and I don't think he can, because there are more than a few Republicans who are willing to side with the Democrats on something like this.
So
They've already proven that in the last 4 weeks, and Trump's not even in power yet.
I will say this actually, when I was just going to say, when Trump was in first, what was the first thing he did when he became president was to try and shut down and stop all Muslims entering the country, wasn't it? Was that the first? Was it that one? Like that?
Yeah,
that was the first. Like, yeah,
I remember that.
Yeah, and that was
the
first sign of how things were going to go. What crazy policy is going to happen this time is what I'd like you guys to actually have a guess. What do you think? What do you think it's going to be?
Well,
Pagan, you go first. What do you think it'll be?
It looks like the big one is going to be the immigration thing, right? So they're going to look to get rid of these 15 million migrants or 10 million migrants, depending on who you listen to. If they do that, then the GOP is going to piss off its own voter base, because most farmers vote for the GOP. And a lot of the farmers get their workers from the so-called illegal immigrants. They've already been warning him against this, and no one's listening to them.
It's actually funny you say that about the immigration stuff, because I don't know, Lee or Graham, how much you guys are aware of this, but obviously Elon Musk, his influence on Trump has been still significant. There's not that sign of, like, everyone's saying that they're going to break the relationship. Like, there was I was reading a story not a while ago, and Phil Morehouse even covered it on his channel, that Steve Bannon is vowing to destroy Elon Musk before the inauguration day, like to somehow try and sabotage the relationship of some sorts. So I'm not sure how it's going to. I'm not sure how that's going to. I've lost my train of thought now. But
it comes to something when Steve Bannon's looking like the good man in the room, though, doesn't he? Jesus,
it's very.
I'll stop clock is right twice a day, so you know.
Well, he got shafted. I mean, I'm not buying for 1 second that Steve Bannon's going to be able to do something. But yeah, the only saving grace for that guy is that he's actually going to try and stop something. But he's going to try and bring down Musk. But yeah, President Musk, I know, as Pagan types. What do you? So Graham, I'll start with you. Obviously, like, Musk, obviously at the moment still seems to have a pretty healthy relationship with Trump, despite everything that's happening. And obviously, hearing Trump agreeing with Musk about the need to bring in immigrants, low working immigrants, because he did have an interview saying that, and this was going against everything that MAGA Republicans want. Basically, the MAGA supporters were always wanting all the immigrants gone, but it's gone completely against that. I mean, how do you think this is going to pan out?
It's hard to know, isn't it? He built so much of his campaign around hatred for immigrants and saying that he was going to deport millions of people and that. Well, we know that's not going to happen. It would collapse your economy if you deported millions of people all at once. And he hasn't got the logistics to do it. It would cost a fortune. So it's not going to happen. So he sold it. His whole campaign is based on a lie. And now you've got Elon Musk putting his thing in as well, which is making it even more confusing for them. I think people are going to get angry with him quite quick, because they're going to see that a lot of what he's said he's going to do is just impossible, always lies. And I don't think that doesn't bode well for the future, does it? Especially not for America.
What what do you think about Musk's relationship, Lee?
Yeah, I can see that one imploding as well. I think, I mean, the last time he was bringing people in, I mean, Steve Bannon, he fell out with Steve Bannon, didn't he? Call him Sloppy Steve or something. You know, he just falls out with everybody at some point. And then, but I mean, Bannon still supported him afterwards, still supporting him now to this day, even though after he slagged him off. But because I think maybe just when people don't give in to him, or maybe they're not as loyal. Maybe they argue back with him. I don't know. They just can't get the thing done that he wants them to do. I don't know, but he does seem to fall out with a lot of them. I think he'll fall out with him at some point, maybe quite soon. Maybe Musk tries to start pushing him about, and he just goes there now.
I think they'll get further apart. I think they'll get further apart the more things Musk says that alienate him from his MAGA people, because he knows that they're put him in power. So if Musk's pissing all them off, then that's going to drive a wedge between them. But who knows?
Elon's got links to China as well, remember, and a lot of Trump's administration are not pro-China, so that's going to be funny as fuck to watch as well.
Yeah, that is for
There's
sure.
a lot more to Elon Musk than a lot of people realise.
Yeah, there is indeed, actually, and we might as well segue, because obviously Elon Musk has been yapping about what's been happening here in the UK as well. The grooming gang scandal, guys, it's been it's like let's. But before we obviously talk about the politics of this, obviously, of course, we ourselves here and everyone in the chat, obviously, our heart goes out to anyone who's been victims, and the fact that that something as horrible and as disgusting and as terrible as this is being used as a political football by politics, by influencers in any way, shape, or form is downright fucking disgraceful and disgusting.
Absolutely.
And the victims in all of this are being swung around here as political gains by certain politicians using to take advantage, whether it's Kemi Badenoch, the Conservatives, whether it's Elon Musk, who's trying to gain some kind of foothold of influence in British politics, regardless of what the political differences here. These victims have suffered, and one of the most frustrating things has been a severe lack of justice for these victims. And the last big national inquiry took 7 years. And that's been a very long time, and I just want to put this out there for those as well, because she announced this today. Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, announced that plans for a government-backed local grooming gangs inquiry. The government has been facing pressure to launch a new national inquiry into grooming gangs, but ministers have said that one has already been carried out. So they're backing local grooming gangs inquiries, but not a national one, which is obviously what the Conservatives want. Lee, I don't know how much of this you've been following, but what are your thoughts on basically what you've heard, and basically what the situation with regards to it being used like this? I mean, it's absolutely horrible.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's just jumped on the bandwagon. Nobody really cared about it up until Elon Musk started going on about it. So, and everybody literally has jumped on the bandwagon on the right wing anyway, the right wing media and everybody. Like you say, they did an inquiry, 7 year. How many millions of pounds it was spent in it? Was it 22 million or something, or more than that, or what? And it was a lot. And they came up with what, 21 different proposals, 21, 22, and they haven't implemented. The Tories had a chance to implement them, and they didn't. And Kemi Badenoch was in the position where she could have pushed that, but she didn't when she was in charge, when she was in the government. So, what I don't see. Maybe there is use in doing another local inquiries if there are things that weren't covered in the original inquiry, but I just see that as wasting more money, wasting more time. They need to put these things in action, which is what some of the victims' families have said, is put the things into action rather than having another inquiry. Get these things sorted so it doesn't happen again. And Keir Starmer has rightly pointed out that he was one of the people. They got more convictions after the changes that he made as when he was the Attorney General. Director of Public Prosecutions. Yeah, sorry. So he the changes that he made to get this to get to grips with these grooming gangs. He did more than anybody else had done at that time. So his indignation and he could tell he was not happy last week during PMQs. Because he knows what he did and what he knows more about probably than anybody else, particularly Kemi Badenoch, Tommy Robinson, and Elon Musk in particular, and he's done more to try and fix it than any of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Graham, what's your thoughts on the situation?
I think you've said a lot of them already, but I totally agree. It's absolutely disgusting, not the way the Tories. I mean, to some degree, you'd expect it from the Tories, but sort of right-wing commentators on GB News and Talk TV and stuff like that, that I've seen. Well, not that I watch them very much, but the amount of people who have just jumped on the bandwagon is absolutely shocking. And a lot of these people didn't even know that there was the inquiry I reported in 2022 and the Tories ignored it. And now they don't want to know because they're not interested in the facts. They just want to, use it to beat Labour up with and attack Keir Starmer with. And and as Lee was just saying, it's more egregious because he is a person that has actually contributed to as good an outcome as we have had. But like you say, there's some horror stories that I've heard as well. So I think it's maybe justified, like you say, in some local cases. But I don't think we should be having another nationwide inquiry. And I think Labour haven't been very good at explaining that we've already had one.
Yeah.
But they're not very good at explaining anything, are they?
No. They're terrible. They really are.
The communication is definitely one of the biggest problems that this Labour government has been doing. That's been one of their biggest downfalls. I also might point out as well, obviously, that before I bring you in, Pagan, is obviously the situation around the grooming gangs is they're specifically targeting, like the language they are using is consistently using Pakistanis. They're consistently using that term specifically. They're not talking about the tragedies that occurred by white grooming gangs or any other national grooming gangs that have been scandals. They're specifically targeting a selective group to stir up rhetoric, to start racism among the population about a specific group of people, and that's I don't know what words to describe it apart from fucking disgraceful. It's really despicable. Yeah. Pagan, what's your thoughts on all of this?
It's like I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm actually going to defend Labour on comms. I actually think, in terms of saying we have already had a national inquiry, I think Labour were pretty clear on this. I think they were pretty damn clear on that. I think Starmer definitely made it clear.
Not in PMQs, he was very strong on it. PMQs,
not just PMQs, but in the press interview the previous Sunday.
When Elon Musk first came out, and then he
he has been absolutely clear in front of the fucking public that we've had a national inquiry. Not only that, but during PMQs, he very clearly explained that whilst some victims want not necessarily a national inquiry, but as we're getting local inquiries, what they really want to see is action. And Labour haven't said anything different. Yvette Cooper hasn't said anything different on that front.
I think it's more that, yes, you're right.
I just want to point this out here in the article that 5 new inquiries, including one in Oldham, will be assisted by the central government with £5 million worth of funding, just for reference as well. Go on, Lee, carry on.
Yeah, I think just going back to the comms thing, I think Keir Starmer was very clear, like you say, in the press conference he did the weekend before on the Wednesday in PMQs. He was very clear, and he was very, he was. You could see how angry he was about the whole thing and how he was being called out for something that he hadn't done, or he'd been blamed for something that he actually done more to fix than anybody else. But in terms of the party and how getting that into the public domain, that information before that, they didn't do very well. And I think part of it is, and it is quite hard because the right-wing press will just ignore it, whatever they say. So they don't, Nigel Farage is going on about how many people he's got as Instagram followers and things like that, and he's getting a lot of young people on following him. Tommy Robinson, likewise, you've got, and then you've got, obviously Elon Musk has got, but he owns a platform that spouts crap. He can spout his crap, and most people. This is one of the things. I saw something the other day about. There's not that many people actually on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. But the most of them, all the journalists are on it because they get their quotes from it. That's what they look for as sources of information, of stories and things like that. Whereas there's way more people on Instagram and things like that. But because he has got the ear of the press, it's like a megaphone for him, isn't it? Just like, he just says something and the press just spreads it. And whereas if he was just another Instagrammer, nobody would probably pay much attention to him. But that's the thing that Labour fails on is social media in terms of getting the word out and spreading the information through social media. Just doesn't do it very well. And that whole debacle with that AI video with the animals was just an example of that, where they tried something and it just backfired spectacularly.
Well, it wasn't just that. It was like you're using an AI thing when you're supposed to be protecting workers, and not only that, the music was actually very nasty,
misogynistic, isn't it?
Misogynistic as well.
Yeah.
I just want to highlight these. I think this is very good. Chatty Rat says, if the victims aren't looking for inquiry, there is no need to one. But when it comes to inquiry, relatives of the Birmingham bombings who are looking for inquiry are entitled to it. Very good point.
Which is why these local ones are how. This is why Yvette Cooper's talking about these local inquiries, because as Starmer pointed out numerous times to Kemi Padnock at last week's PMQs, there are several victims that he spoke to that morning that do want an a local inquiry in their area.
Yeah,
they don't want to see a national inquiry because wasting time and money.
Yeah. Alistair Keir, thank you again for being very generous today, saying what pisses me off, the child protection bill was the same thing or part of what the Scottish government tried to put into Scottish law. Wastemongers, the Tories did section 35 to block it. That's fucking disgraceful.
Well, they tried to block this one as well. Remember, like not in the same way, but technically by trying to put this amendment in for a national inquiry, they tried to block this bill too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. The main thing, obviously, like we want to see, I think, like what we want to see over the next year is the police actually breaking down doors and actually seeing them, hearing stories from hearing stories of people being arrested, apprehended, and charged and whatnot. That's what we want to start seeing. And how much of that is going to be highlighted by the media is obviously going to be is the thing as well, because we know the right wing aren't going to highlight it too much because it will show that the government are doing their job. But we do need to see that. Like, I think there was a story not too long ago. One of the police constables in the area was basically saying, "We're coming for you," and I'm like, I don't want to hear words. I want to actually you see what you guys are doing to deal with these gangs, and regardless of, it doesn't matter whether they're white, whether they're Pakistan, whatever their nationality is, these are all still scumbags, and they all need to be caught, and they all need to be facing the full wrath of the law for their heinous crimes. And it's incredibly scary that we actually have that this has been going on for so long, and we're talking about as many as 50 towns. And it does, and I think this is a very serious question that I think is worth asking. I would like to ask you guys. I really do think this is a very serious question. Are there people within the police force, or within politics, or within certain, like in the system, that are trying to protect some of these grooming gangs because of the lack of justice? And I think that's one of my biggest concerns, because what was it, 2011 was it when it was coming up by was it 2011 I believe was when it was brought up. And yeah, we can talk about the Conservatives as all, but was it just the Conservatives? Was it politicians? Was it not the police? Was it the justice system? Like as Nigel Farage says, I'm just asking questions. Graham, do you think there's anything there? Do you think there's anything there? Is it just the case of the Conservatives, or is there more to this that I'm fearing here? Because that is what's really worrying me about all of this.
I think, is it just the Conservatives? I might not necessarily be the best person to ask there, but what I will say is, if the Conservatives didn't do anything about the report they got in 2022, and they were in power after, like you say, from 2011 onwards. But I also think the police force that, didn't deal with it properly were police that were put in place by the Labour government before that. So I do think they're both to blame on this one, to be honest.
I think there's some councillors, weren't there? And I think depends which area it was, but there was concern that they didn't want to be seen as being racist by targeting Muslim men or Asian men.
Yes,
and that's a concern, because for all we're kind of
I think
pretty woke here, you still have to call out if somebody is doing something wrong. You still have to prosecute them. You
just
can't
to go back
to what. Go on. Sorry,
Graham.
What Regan was saying, I think there probably is people who are deeply involved because horribly they're part of it. I mean, we found out in the last few years. I mean, being a policeman doesn't necessarily mean you aren't some sort of monster. They're still out there. But I think there'll be an aspect to that, and then there's also people who don't want it to come out because they've been working for 20 odd years and they're coming up for retirement, and they don't want something they might have done that was a bit maybe not absolutely terrible, but maybe not by the rules either in 2014 or something. Yeah,
like
there's a lot of people
within the post office scandal, for example.
Yeah.
Go on, Pagan.
Who knows what the air's buried.
I don't know if you guys have heard of the Baroness Casey report.
Yes.
Came out 2021, I think. And
what was it
described the state of the police, the Metropolitan Police, and the constabularies. I did 2 long form videos, hour and a half long each, or something stupid like that. And I was reading, and I was just a small part of the report as well. And there are policemen who were being like some of this was after Boris Johnson came in and lowered the requirements for vetting. I said that he did that immediately in coming into power, which from what I gather, Labour have Sunak put them back up, from what I gather, because the police were complaining at him because Johnson did that. But in the report, it talks about how some police officers were, they were they're talking about the ones who were arrested for talking about, I think it was a rape victim or sexual assault victim, who they were sending a picture of her and laughing about the victim on WhatsApp. I think they did that to several victims. Like,
there was a case a couple of years ago, wasn't there? The police were didn't 2 of them get sacked for taking pictures of a woman who'd been murdered?
Well, they're not the only 2. That was just the most high profile one. And I was talking to 2 coppers last night as I was out walking the dog upfield, and they were saying that, like, finally we're getting funding, but it's going to take ages to bring us back up to the level of adequacy, the level of respectability that they were at when I was growing up. Because you could run up and you see a policeman in the street and go, and he would actually help you out, or he or she, I should say, would help you out. I had several occasions with that experience. To me, as a socialist, it's about the police service, not the police force. And as soon as I said that to the officers last night, they give me a proper smile. It's quite funny.
One of the things with the police is like, so Theresa May, when she was Home Secretary, she basically cut all the numbers of police, and she stood in front of a police, the police was it officers board or something, like the police union, and basically said, yeah, it'll be fine, and they're like chief inspectors are going, this is just going to make things really bad, and you don't know what you're doing, and she was just like, no, it'll be fine. Efficiencies, the usual.
That's a fair.
Yeah. But the thing
more
was,
for less.
Yeah, and the thing was that then it was. I was listening to a guy talking about knife crime, a police officer who'd left the force, and he said the thing was back in under Labour and last Labour government, they had basically like task force people in the community who knew the local kids, they knew who the trouble causers were, who they could talk to find out information. They knew the community, they knew everybody. So they were out in the community, and so they could, rather than having to go around and basically pick people up and, search them in the street and all that, stop and search, they knew who to look for if there was any aggro. And so it kept crime down. And then once they started making these cuts, all these different programs had to be shut down because they didn't have enough staff to do it. And it's like a fallacy of austerity. It's like you cut the numbers of police, or you stop spending money on these things, expecting it to not have an effect, and you end up with like crime and death rates from knife crime and all these different things, and they all cost more in the end.
Yeah,
because
people.
Yeah. It's ridiculous, and you've got like the society starts breaking down. People, crime increases because they know they can get away with it, and because obviously people haven't got jobs to go to and that they're going to make money from, so they basically turn to crime. It's like a downward spiral once you start cutting things.
That's exactly what I was
taking into account the community centres that are all gone.
Yeah. The nearest one to me closed down within a couple of years of the Tories getting in, and my local library closed down within 3 years of the Tories getting in. And the only reason it's still there is because it's a listed building, so they're not allowed to knock it down. But they've basically just closed it and emptied it, and it has been empty now for over 10 years. Beautiful listed building.
Yeah.
I mean, even I was just going to say, like, that's why there's been so much kicking up from the retail consortium about, hey, we're getting so much theft. Why you guys do something about it? And it's like, and obviously I've spent 15 years working in retail, and that was when they had systems and all that in place, and it's been getting worse and worse and worse. And it's just like, what are we supposed to do? Because retailers don't want to, they've been getting they get so much more abuse than before, and they don't want to just stand by and watch these people come in and just swipe a load of products and just get out. And it's hurting businesses as well. It costs them money because yes, of course they have insurance, but all these things cost money.
And that pushes prices up.
Yeah.
And the cost of living goes up because everybody's having to pay more because the insurance has gone up for the thefts, and also the losses that these companies are making out to cover them by putting the prices up. And then everybody's got less money to spend. It's just like a downward spiral. All these different things just compound on top of each other to make things worse for everybody. Apart from the rich, obviously.
It's directly linked to the cost of living crisis, all of this. It's all interconnected, linked.
You can link it directly to austerity,
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, we've got about just under 10 minutes, so I thought we'd just quickly, we'll talk a little bit about one or two stories that have come up today as well. Just want to say, guys, thank you guys all for your comments. If we haven't responded to them all, we do apologize, but we are looking at the chat, so we do appreciate everyone's and Alistair Kerr being extremely generous today with his gifted memberships and super chats as well. Thank you for that, my friend. I appreciate it. And the story I wanted to, where is it now? I didn't bring up the notes. So two things actually happened today. So the Liberal Democrats have come out and have basically, I got it here. There we go. Yeah, they basically come out and basically said that the United Kingdom needs to rejoin the European Union's customs union. So they've come out with that, basically coming blatantly out of it. So they didn't say the single market, didn't say the European Union completely, but they basically said they've come out saying it's time to rejoin the customs union, which would obviously really help in terms of trade, because obviously the economy right now is doing really, really pants, and Rachel Reeves is in a bit of a bind, as some of you, as I'm sure you guys know, that she's pretty screwed with her physical rules, which she's going to have to physically do something to get out of that. That, but at the same time, while we're also talking about Brexit, Kimmy Bagnock, the Looney Tune, one of the many Looney Tunes within the Conservative Party, actually criticised the Conservatives' handling of Brexit and acknowledged that the Conservatives made mistakes. Won't apologise. Yeah, she can't apologise. That's too far for a Conservative. No, but the fact that we've heard two stories there relating to Brexit, are we starting to see some cracks in this whole "don't talk about Brexit" bubble now? Given that we've had these two stories come up, Graham, what's your thoughts about this? Like, are we starting to see some chinks in the, in possibly starting to, maybe we're going to have a look at the white elephant as opposed to ignoring it in the room, maybe?
No, it's the biggest elephant anyone's ever been able to ignore for the last few years, isn't it? Yeah, I agree with the Liberal Democrats. Of course, we should be doing that, and we should be talking about it, because it's the biggest sort of act of self-harm that a country has ever perpetrated on itself. It clearly hasn't worked. It's clearly failed. It's time to stop listening to all the right-wing idiots who lied about it for years and told us it was going to be great, and start listening to the people who actually knew what they were talking about and told us it wasn't going to be great now, and move towards trying to fix it instead of trying to ignore it. It's a pretty blanket statement, but that's how I feel about it.
Yeah. Lee, how are you feeling about these stories about little rumours of Brexit? I mean, they may just disappear within the next couple of days with other things, but they're in the mainstream media.
There's an article in the Independent as well about it, wasn't there? About saying like the reason why we haven't got growth is because of Brexit, and we need to admit that that's what's causing the problems. Because basically every country's been hit with inflation and cost of living going up and everything. Just that we've been hit on top of that with Brexit, and it's made things worse for us. And it was interesting because Graham Hughes did a live thing in Liverpool at the Tory conference and the Labour conference, like a fringe event, and one of the guys on there, I can't remember, it might have been Femi actually, and he said, if you imagine there's like a panel of buttons and switches that Reeves and Keir Starmer could actually switch to, like, grow the economy, like, cut tax on this or increase tax on this, or all these different things that they can do, and then these big massive button in the corner with deal with Brexit, join the customs union, and it would give you, all these other ones will give you like 0.1% of growth, or 0.5%, whatever, and this one's got like 5% on it, and they're all just completely ignoring this button, this big massive switch. Just because
it's like the firebox, like a firebox where you say "do not break." Yeah, that's what it's basically saying. Do not touch.
Don't look at this button. Big sticker over it. Ignore this. That's kind of it. Yeah, he's the best description of the situation is like,
I like that.
Yeah, we could, this could be fixed. We could do something with, like, join the customs union. It doesn't even have to be called the customs union. It could be a customs union that we have with the EU, which is very similar to the actual customs union. And then, and then you could look at like how you can work with a single market, get rid of some of the tariffs and the barriers and all the paperwork. All these things could be done without having to rejoin the EU. It's not as ideal, but can't make Brexit work. QA like library. Sorry.
I will just say, obviously, with regards to, because Phil's actually made a point there, joining the customs union isn't a choice, it was a request. Yes, but it would be starting the process if it would be starting the process. But obviously, of course, Reform and the Conservatives would obviously sabotage it. The right-wing media would not stop talking about how they're betraying the will of the British public as well.
That's what I was just thinking.
But opinion is. Sorry, Graham, just say this. Opinion is in our favour at the moment. It's like 60% of people think Brexit has been a mistake.
Yeah.
So go on. Sorry, Graham.
I think that Labour are thinking the very next day after they do anything towards moving towards the EU, all the papers are going to attack them, all the media are going to attack them. But they do that every day anyway.
Yeah.
And there's got to be a point Yeah, they've got to get hold of it and move forward at some point. Because like you say, it's being ignored, and it can't be ignored forever.
Because at the moment they're talking, you hear it see it on social media. People are saying, "Got to get rid of this government. Keir Starmer has to go," and all this. And he's only been in that was like when they've just been in like 2 months. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it didn't help with the whole pension.
No,
Cuts to the pension, the winter fuel payment. That was just like shooting yourself in the foot. You know, at a time when you're supposed to try and give yourself a good. Well, Labour has to be careful because they've only got 4.5 years now to get the country back on its feet and feeling better in people's pockets. And at the moment, they've wasted the last 6 months, or they haven't exactly made good progress on it. I would say.
What they have done, nobody knows about because they're so rubbish at getting it out there.
Yeah. Pagan, go on. I know you've been itching to comment.
Sorry.
I freely admit I'm a Labour member. Right?
Yeah, so I'll admit that for full disclosure.
I do agitate with the Labour Party. You know, I agitate the Labour Party being in the Labour Party. You know, as I said before, my major thing is sea level rise and the effects of climate change, which are bigger than. I don't mean to sound egotistical because it's my topic, but it is the biggest of our problems. Right? They are the biggest of our problems. Whether we've got different ideas about why it's not, but like in factual, objective terms. Sea level rise and climate change will affect every single other policy. Every single one, in one way or another.
Yeah.
And Labour are talking about green energy, but they're not talking about, preparing for sea level rise and climate change. Like that's those two, like, we're talking about new railway routes. My local railway route is in the next 10 to 15 years likely to go under the sea. So I will not be able to travel north from Torbay up to Exeter to get to the rest of the bloody country.
Yeah.
So, there's that. But I will say that Labour, I watched Phil's video about from different buyers, the stuff that Labour they've put in place that have yet to take effect.
Yeah,
which are due to start taking effect this year, and from what I gather, there's more to come. I had a long debate on Discord, on the Politics Social Discord, with a couple of people who know more about economics than I do, and I'm like, so what about these cuts then towards disability benefits? And like, they haven't actually said about cuts to disability benefits. Yeah. I'm like, I thought they had. And they're like, no, that's the right-wing media. If you actually read into the article, as Phil keeps saying,
there was a story. Could I just intervene on that? Because that's really important. I know we're running out of time. There was a story from the iPaper that said that they tried to do something like that and lost it in a high court case today, I believe it was, from the iPaper when it comes to cuts to disabilities.
Tried what? Tried what?
The government. I need to find the article. Bear with me 1 second. But carry on, Pagan, while I bring it up.
Like I said, I'm seeing, but for me, when it comes to EU, I think getting the conversation going to the Liberal Democrats are right to do this. It's not. They've got to understand this isn't just a case of us going, EU, we want to have a customs union, and the EU going, yeah, let's do that. Nice, fam. No. The EU is 27 other fucking nations. Like, they're gonna have to agree to this stuff, So again, and we've made ourselves pretty, look pretty unfriendly towards our European neighbours. Now, Labour have been going abroad. Since before they got into power, so they've been going to Europe to try and fix the relationships, and I've been hearing good things. I was quite amused or enthused even to see the meeting with Jonas Store, the Labour Party in Norway. They're in charge at the moment in Norway, and then I was gutted that it was about carbon fucking capture storage. I was like, oh God. But I also understand from an industrial point of view, in terms of jobs, we're talking about this is a transition period thing, and it is useful for concrete and glass making. So I do wonder if that can be utilized for, say, using concrete to help prepare, for our preparations for sea level rise and climate change.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to stop there because we are over the time now anyway. But I'll put a link for it anyway. But with regards to disability, so the I paper had disability benefit cuts plan was ruled unlawful as the DWP loses the court case. The campaign is overjoyed as the High Court says the government failed to highlight substantial loss of benefit payments, but Labour recommits to bringing in reforms. I'll just read a little bit of it. The government has vowed to forge ahead with plans to cut out-of-work benefits despite losing a crucial court case brought by disabled campaigners. The Department of Work and Pensions plans to reform a key benefit test that could see more than 400,000 disabled and chronically ill people lose more than £400 a month. That's the story that I highlighted there. But obviously, guys, we've gone over an hour and a half. But and I want to say thank you to everyone who's come along in the chat. Thank you guys for all your comments. Thank you, Alistair, for all your generous super chats and gifted memberships here to the channel here. Greatly appreciated. One Angry Pagan, thank you so much for your time. Graham, power to the people. Thank you so much for joining us as well. I really appreciate the work that you do as well. And Lee, of course, my friend, we do need to do a show again because we didn't do one at Christmas, so it's at some point maybe
we need to do a belated recap of
a random show sometime in the year.
Yeah, a recap of 2024. Thanks for having me on. Thank you.
Yes. All right. We'll arrange that in February. We'll arrange something in February. We'll see. I'll let you know, and we'll see if we can arrange something there. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. But guys, do check out One Angry Pagan YouTube channel, youtube.com/One Angry Pagan, and check out Power to the People, youtube.com/Power to the People. The moderators will put the links in the description. They all in the chat for you guys as well. The next, just before we head out as well, the next show, I do have a scheduled date for it, but I'm waiting confirmation from the guests that I have for it. And it won't be on a Thursday, it will be on a Wednesday because I'll have a guest I've not had on before. So I'm waiting confirmation of that. And I know you guys wanted Jenny from Random Scottish History on. I am working to get her on as well. I know the Scots there are big fans of her, as I am too. And obviously, everything is always lovely when there are animals available to see on the screen as well. Yes, guys. So I will be back tomorrow with. Oh, we just had a jump there. I'll be back tomorrow with live stream at 7 p.m. for my birthday live stream. So if you guys want to join me for that, feel free to do so as well. So yes, my birthday is. Yeah, I'm just going to throw that out there. My birthday is this Saturday, just in case anybody's interested.
Anybody wants to give you a massive super chat for your birthday?
But you said that, not me. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Take care and have a great evening, everyone. All right.
Bye. Cheers. Bye.